And in these three dinners, what he's doing is that he's having dinner with the potential girlfriend's family or very close friends, right? And then in the end, there's basically a selection process whereby two of those families will receive a driver who will come to just bring flowers, basically as a form of rejection. Then whoever is the actual date that's chosen, that person will receive the person that has been having dinner with their family members or close friends, right? And whenever these three contestants were asked what's their type, literally it was such a pandemic. They would say, uh, I'm looking for dark, a tall, dark man, right? That was literally everybody's request or preference. So I wanted to know, like in England, what has there been a case whereby only a selected few of men were found attractive by the majority?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that are following the narrative, especially with feminism and stuff, a lot of women will say they want a man with a six pack, with six figures and stuff like all that crazy stuff. He has to have a certain look. Although I know that the look's been shifting recently. Like back in the day, they used to promote blonde hair, blue eyes, very skinny, and now like I don't know what the shift is for men. I think it's more of if he's got like six figures, a six pack, and all this weird stuff. But I know with the women, it's kind of shifted into they have to have like a big bum, and it's no longer about looking white. If you can at least look mixed or something. That seems to be the in thing now. But in terms of what a man looks like, yeah, I feel like it's just that whole narrative of you need to get a guy with like an Andrew Tate or something. I don't know if his look is the thing because he's not my type to be honest at all. But sometimes it's just hard to know when you're not following the narrative because obviously my type isn't going to be what the narrative is anyway. Um, but I have heard a lot of these feminists like you need to get a guy that has six figures and a six pack and this and that, and the list goes on forever, and it's just really ridiculous. Like the 1% man they say. Um, but yeah, hopefully that helped answer your question.
Uh, Definitely jump in here because this is related to the last question I just posed in the group, and it's also related to what I've been speaking about on Facebook recently. Good evening, Saints, by the way, and hope everyone's well. I would just say that it's exactly the same. So what you just said, I think you said that's in South Africa, that's a TV show or a dating show, is no different. And as you were speaking, or as Nicole was speaking, there was a shift from light skin to dark skin over here as well. Um, as I was saying, I think it was in the group recently. I believe God gives me downloads as I'm speaking. He gives me wisdom. So even if I've never really explored the topic, it starts making sense to me in my mind. So I knew that there's been a shift from the Ti look to the Idris Elba look. So Ti used to be the look. Ti, Chris Brown, that was the look. Then it moved to Idris Elba. It's quite self-explanatory. You just have to look at what's trending in the mainstream and in the media. Who's trending? Like, what's the look that is the main look in the movies? What's the look that's the main look in the rap scene, which is dominating the world now? Hip hop dominates the world. So then, what is all the young white girls going to be attracted to now? People that look like hip hop artists, and what do most hip hop artists look like today? And also, what came to me as you guys were speaking is the there's an interesting display of masculinity with dark skinned men. So, okay, you said tall and dark skin. there tends to be just naturally this idea of intimidation and fear. So I'm sure that everyone can relate to that in some kind of way. So tall and dark skin as opposed to Chris Brown or Ti. Ti was a bit of a ruffian or a roadman, but Chris Brown was a sweet boy. So that mixed race look or that light skin look kind of got pushed out the way because it was very effeminate. So the look, it's not that every light skinned person is effeminate, but the look, if you look back in time, Usher and all of these singers, that because light skin was the look that you had to have to become famous. Like that was what it was back then. That's why Beyonce became famous out of Destiny's Child. And so there was a point when light skin was what was trending, just like the white hair, the white blonde hair and blue eyes look. And then there was a shift, and women are always looking for masculinity. So I would definitely see a shift between Chris Brown and Idris Elba. Idris Elba, even though it's not in real life, because to be fair, a lot of these guys that look masculine, they're really not. So it's not even that I'm saying they are masculine, but there's a presentation of masculinity with the tall, dark skin, muscles, and then this kind of intimidating look. And there was a period when girls wasn't attracted to that as well, but it's definitely the look now. So I would confirm that the tall, dark skin look is definitely the trending look in the West today, but be it UK, be it America. Um, Obviously, there's everyone has individual preferences, but there's this kind of fantasy as well, or a fantasy idea with the tall and dark skinned men that women are attracted to naturally. So those are some thoughts that came to mind as you lot was speaking, but also it's been a topic that I've been kind of discussing recently. The question I just asked in the group, which you don't have to really answer now because it was a group question, was just the idea that this girl in the video is saying, I just need a man to put a sword to my throat and lift my head. And that's a warped version or a twisted version of masculinity, but the guy in the video is explaining that this is what women want, and that's why the good guys finish last, as we've all heard. Good guys finish last. And then the guy with the sword finishes first, and she's passionately explaining she needs the guy that can destroy her whole community, like in a romantic novel book, and he goes around and slays all the dragons, then comes to her with the power to do her harm, but he chooses not to. And my question in the group was, do all women still subscribe to that? Most women do. Or are there women that would say, no, I don't want my man to be able to harm me? 'Cause that would be an anomaly, to be fair, because most women do want the man that can do them harm, but chooses not to, rather than a man that has no power to do them harm. But coming back to it, without going too far, this is all correlated into the idea of masculinity. So whatever looks more masculine is always naturally going to be attractive to women, whether that's via looks or personality, character traits, etc. Haley, I believe you had your hands up, and I can't see what you said in the chat.
I was just gonna ask that is your like sometimes can your preference be to, for example, for what you were surrounded with? Like for example, like if you grew up like in a community full of like, I don't know, black people, then you're probably gonna more likely be going towards like a black person that you'd like. Or let's say if you grow up in a community and you're surrounded by, let's say, more of Asian people, so you're more likely to be drawn to more like Asian people. I was just wondering if that could be like an element or something that could cause somebody to more likely go for a certain like race or type, or be their type, sorry.
I'll just answer that quickly, and then I'll give it back to Owetu, because obviously you had the question. Um, Again, something's coming to me as you're speaking. So there is always the natural comfortability. I'll give you a perfect example. Um, I'll give you a perfect example. There was a girl in my old church. There's a female in my old church. She's pretty female, and a Brazilian girl, and she loved the idea of black men. She just used to really be crazy. We was young. I was 24. She was probably about 19 or something like that. And she would just really have this fantasy idea of, oh my gosh, I can't marry a white guy. I just need a black guy. And when I say Brazilian, she's like white Brazilian or white looking Brazilian. And she every time a black guy came into the church, she would start getting nervous and start just going crazy and getting excited. So this is clearly now a fantasy. And so that's why I wanted to draw a line here as well. There's a difference between love and fantasy. What's the difference? Now, when you look at a community that you've grown up in, naturally Chinese people are going to be going for a Chinese person. You're not going to pick the black person that comes into China because that's strange to you. It's different, it's weird. And you're looking to establish a family. So naturally, you're going to go for what's comfortable. The white's going to go for the white, the Italian's going to go for the Italian. The Polish is going to go for the Polish. Naturally, that's the comfortable place, and that's usually That's I'm going to say that's usually more genuine, because it's just you. This is what you consider like you. This is like yourself, and this is someone you would easily consider having a family with. Now, then there's the idea of fantasy, and the fantasy idea is, as I just explained, um, this idea of, oh my gosh, the other side is exciting. Oh my gosh, black men are so. Who did I speak to one time? And they just was like, black people are so cool. They're so amazing. They're just so cool. And they're referring to hip hop artists who are like gangbangers with, just crazy. And to this, I think it was an Ethiopian, and they was referring to that, and they're acting like, that's really enticing and exciting, but that's because they don't really know the reality of their lives as well. So this fantasy idea, the problem with fantasy, and I'm not saying everybody that goes outside of their race or goes for something different is a fantasy, but there is a level of fantasy in response to Katie's question, that it's like, well, I don't want, a soft white guy from my community. I want a dominating looking black man because he can beat up the white guy. Let's just use some crazy examples. So the black guy looks stronger, so I'm gonna go for him. I want a guy, and it comes back to the idea women want to protect to the strong man. This guy looks more dangerous, and I want to be with him, which is like the video I just posted in the group. So I think the fantasy, but again, the problem or the issue with the fantasy is that might not be true love. And I'll close with this example. Coming back to the first example I used of that girl who said, I will never marry a white guy. I need to be with a black dude. And she used to act black and talk black and do everything black. Now she's married to Harry Potter. I don't mean the literal Harry Potter, but she's married to a Harry Potter lookalike. So that's one extreme to the other. So she's settled for the Harry Potter, which is deep down what she really was comfortable with, meaning that the black thing and the black gangster thing was just a phase for her or a fantasy for her. So I just wanted to add that nuance in there. Yes, there's a comfortability of having this natural nature of, oh yeah, I'm attracted to people that look like my dad or like my family because they're like me. It's fine. White people stick with the whites. But then because of the diversity today and social media, it's like, wow, that looks cute. That's different. I want that. Just like a white guy going for some chunky black girl, and it's really different to everyone that he's raised around. But it's like, wow, that looks exciting. And sometimes it's perverted as well, but it just looks exciting. So yeah, those are some thoughts. And whoever was next. And Oetu as well, if you wanted to bring the question back.
I was just gonna say when you're around someone for too long or you keep seeing that person, you could end up being attracted to them as well because it's like if you walk to the shop every day but you always see that person, then you end up talking and that sort of stuff. Maybe, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with doing, and also the things that Chika said. And um, I would say like if it, what can I say? Attraction does not equate to liking someone, you know. For instance, right? Let's say I like Mercedes Benz, and then I see a BMW, and I I I I find the BMW attractive, but given the money, I would probably go for the Mercedes Benz first. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that I think this is just opinion, you can negate it or affirm it, but I think when we start liking somebody, based on seeing them frequently or seeing them constantly. It's more so a thing of you actually start to get to learn about their character, because the more you interact with this person, the more you see the qualities that you would appreciate within that person. The more you get to see the common things that you guys have. So, yeah, I believe that's when you start learning about the character of the person, and therefore leading you to like them. So now, the questions I have for the saints, right, is that I know probably everyone had a type before Christ, right? So maybe Chuka liked light skinned women, Dwayne liked uh, chunky women, for instance, right? And after now accepting Christ, were you then able to sort of look at the character more than what the outward appearance is? Also for the ladies, probably had a type before Christ, then after Christ, are you now looking more at the character? So would you be willing to marry someone who is not your type, but they are godly, if you know what I'm saying? So yeah, like what were the scales before Christ, and what are the scales after Christ? And I'm more so talking about looks. Like, would you? I don't even want to say compromise, but for the lack of a better term, would you compromise now on what your ideal look is for the sake of for the sake of the man being godly and being a provider, and obviously you don't have to answer for people that you no matter how godly they are, you just can't find them attractive. There are such people, that you see as truly your brothers and sisters in Christ, and you feel nothing when you look at them. So yeah, just a question for everyone.
I was just gonna say, I think also cultural, so sorry, I can't even say it, culture. Oh, sorry, culture can play a part as well. So to what you're used to as well, like there might be certain cultures that you know certain things about, and you think, oh no, I don't think I could actually marry into that culture because it would just, how can I put it? It would just be probably too much for you as a person. I think that would be definitely something I would have considered. I couldn't go with certain cultures, not because, like I said, I'm racist or anything. It's just I wouldn't be able to do certain things, and I might be an offensive person to them. But my preference in the world, and still is, I've always went from white men, and I think that's because I was grown up around white men, literally in school. Like I'll be probably like the odd black man, but it was mainly like white men. But if they, I don't know. It's not that I see like any other races like I think oh they're ugly or anything, because that's not the case. It's just I've seen like black men that I think oh okay they're all right looking, but it's just I know my preference, I know my type. Um, and let's say if it's in Christ, God, I think God knows what kind of person you would like, and He's suited for you anyway, whether they're the race that you want or whether they're not. So yeah.
I thought someone else. That's an interesting take as well. That's very interesting because you don't often, as funny as it sounds, in the West, you don't often hear people say that white is their first choice, and that's crazy even amongst white people that I've spoken to. But then that also comes back to the community that I'm mostly around. So, but that's good as well. It's good because it's unique, and it means that you're not being pressured into what societal norms expect of you or what expect of a mixed race girl and all the rest of that. So there again, what you said is really just confirming that idea of the comfortable aspect of culturally. Actually, when you're speaking, I was thinking for me, let's let's use Japanese for example, or Korean. Now, are there really attractive Korean women? Are there really amazing looking Chinese women? I don't know. I just don't know. Why don't I know? Because I'm not looking. Similarly to what Kaylee said, because it doesn't make sense to look. And I think I had a note one time written, something along, it was a revelation or something along the lines of you're attracted to what's attainable, or you're tempted by what's actually somewhat attainable. You're not usually tempted by something that you will never attain or can never attain. There has to be a level of the ability to attain the thing, whether by will or by force, but to attain that. So when I think of a Japanese woman, I don't ever think of that unless it was the case, like Dwayne said, like Wetu said, you bump into her on the way to the shop and you're like, wow, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, wow, wow, wow. The first time I've spoken to a Japanese person. But generally, my mind doesn't go there. So I don't even know. I can't even tell if Japanese people are attractive or not. They just look the same to me. Why? That's ignorant because I've never looked hard enough to see the differences, even. And then let's be fair, there were a lot of white people were like that with black people. I was compared to Will Smith when I was young, when I moved to Luton, by the way, because that wouldn't happen in London. But when I moved to Luton, people were comparing me to Will Smith and Dizzy Rascal. So you see, um, because I'm black, and that doesn't make sense. But they can't distinguish the difference because of their ignorance. So I think all of us, in some way, I think everyone in this room would have a level of ignorance to some country. What about Sri Lanka? Does anyone know anything about what Sri Lankans look like? There's going to be a level of ignorance. And so in those ignorant areas, there could just be that as well. Then, as Katie mentioned, there could also be the cultural biases where it's like, nah, nah, I don't like that culture. I don't like what I've heard about that culture. I think that's going to always play into our decisions as well. I don't think that culture and mine. I still see, there's certain cultures that I think that won't fit well with me, even though I'm in Christ, born again, and all the rest of that. And I think there may have been something else I wanted to say, but I'll come back to the rest of it when everyone else shares your thoughts on preferences or how that's changed when you come to Christ.
I would say, like, in the world, you kind of, because you tend to live more for the opinions of others, you tend to be, for me personally, I could say I was probably very, very picky when it had come to outward appearance. And I think the thing is with, like, coming to Christ, because obviously when you come to Christ as well, you learn to, you're more humbled in yourself as well. But then also it's like it opens up more of those prospects of, it's not all about how other people look at you or your life. It's now about Christ and reflecting what he wants for you. And so I would say for myself, yeah, I've definitely changed in terms of what I would probably entertain. It would definitely be more focused around like the man themselves rather than the outward appearance. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be like everyone has a preference to some degree, but ultimately I wouldn't say I'm tied down to like one specific look anymore. Like, I know in the culture that I was raised in, for example, like especially with my friend group, like mixed race and black men, that was all it was. It's mixed race and black men, and it was like, because being so embedded in that culture as well growing up, it almost seemed strange to even envision anything else. But then, yeah, like when Christ breaks you free from cultural norms and stuff like that, it really does, open up your options really. So yeah, I'd definitely say that it changes things.
Also, just a question, Tia, for you, right? Since you were attracted to black and mixed race, man. Would you say every black man is a roadman, or do you have coconuts in England?
You know, definitely not every black person's a roadman. There's definitely diversity in terms of, you know, you got black nerds and you have like many different types of individuals. But yeah, no, not everyone is the same. It just tends to be like that's just what's desirable now and today. Like it's all about roadmen and stuff, and that's why you even see it with the white guys. They try so hard to mimic black culture and stuff like that as well. Like they would be dressed in the same way, talking the same way. So it's like because I feel like white men know that's what's desirable to a woman as a whole now. It's like that's what they're trying to mimic, and yeah, it is interesting, but you do get like people that are outside of that norm.
No, that is quite interesting. That is quite interesting. And I wonder how the narrative would be if in the Old Testament the men were only attracted to women from their tribes and the women likewise, you know. I wonder how limiting it would be in terms of the stories and the scripture that we receive, because we often see in the Old Testament a man leaving his home country to go find a woman from a completely different tribe. And so, yeah, I guess it's all part of God's plan for everyone really to expand their their level of attractiveness to different tribes so that the gospel could essentially be spread more. So I do see the purpose in the expansion of your level of attractiveness.
So, in terms of testimony wise, and I've shared it many times, but in summary, when I was in the world, I was attracted to bad girls. I was attracted to not the mainstream bad girls, but I don't know if you know who. I don't know why I always use Keisha Cole as an example because I can't even really remember what she looks like. But I don't know if you know Keisha Cole, but I grew up on R&B and rap and hip hop and all the rest of that. So Keisha Cole had this, I think she even had a gap in the middle of her tooth. And I remember even being attracted to that. And there was something about the gap in the middle of the tooth, which is funny because I've spoken to my Ethiopian girl about this, and she said in her country, that's also desirable, having a gap in the middle of your tooth. Now, what I associated with the gap in the middle of the tooth, I don't know if that was something from when I was a child or what, but there was this like the girl had this kind of feisty. We could use the word feisty. It's like a feisty look. It could even be a gold teeth in her mouth. Now it's interesting because today is the complete opposite. I wouldn't go for anything of the sort. But back then, before Christ, it was this kind of maybe a fantasy. It was this idea of a roundaway chick. Even in my old music, I referred to that a roundaway girl, like a hood chick. So that was what I was attracted to, and that's the opposite of being submissive or gentle, actually. Obviously, every woman's gonna have a level of gentility, but it's cut off by the edge or the rudeness, the cheekiness, and all the rest of that. Coming to Christ, learning God's ways, learning the scriptures over the years, it dramatically shifted. And I'm gonna say, even over the last few years, 5 years, since God really, because God takes you through layers and depths, and that's what I've said to you before, Owetu, that you're so young, and even your framework of desire may change dramatically, possibly because there's something about as we grow into ourselves as well as we grow into our being established, that we begin to see what we're actually attracted to, different to what your needs when you're 23 is not your needs when you're 30, for example, and maybe not even be a need when you're 30. And so when I was 23, when I was 24, when I was prior to Christ, 21, 22, um, I think there was a need for validation to some degree. And so a validation from a certain type of looking girl for whatever reason. There was I wasn't attracted to any nerdy girls or submissive looking girls. And I didn't call it submissive, but it was anything nerdy I wasn't attracted to. Today, I would be attracted to anything nerdy. So it's the opposite. I wasn't back then. I found that very off putting. I had opportunities with women back in the day, many opportunities at that, with women who were into me, but they were too nice. They were just good. They were just kind, and I didn't like it. I wasn't, I didn't, I would nicely put them away. Like I just realized that you're too good for me. I just don't want that. And I'll put you away. Some men are beasts and they'll take advantage and do what they're doing and leave them. I couldn't do that. I'm just like, nah, this ain't gonna work. Like you're too good. Today, that's what I would need. There's a necessity, and even encourage men too. Um, so today, how God has formulated my desire is I would say it's quite extreme. I'm gonna just say it's quite extreme. For me today, coming from the opposite extreme, desirability to me today is what the Bible says. So to be fair, I can say it's extreme, but it's actually what God teaches. The beauty of a woman is in a gentle and quiet spirit. Today, there's nothing more unattractive to me than a loudmouth woman, chicken bone in the mouth woman, um, screaming up in the street woman. There's nothing more unattractive to me than a rebellious woman. There's nothing more unattractive, like truly unattractive, and not to the. I don't hate them because they need help, they need deliverance. But there's this kind of I would never do that to myself because I've seen the damage it causes. I've seen the broken homes. I've just seen too much and I understand too much. I would be a fool today, and I say this again, even as a lesson to men, I would be a fool to get with a woman who has no order, to get with a woman who's not God fearing, who's not submissive and gentle and submissive is the key word. Because any man can run around like a lot of these social media simps and be like, I don't need my woman to submit, it's okay. And 5 years later, you're going to be cheating. 10 years later, you're going to be cheating. Why? Because you realize your woman's slapping you in the back of your head. She don't respect you. And what you're going to do, as they've been putting all these memes on social media, you're going to be sitting outside your house for minutes because you're scared to go inside because you know it's chaos in your house. You're going to be staying at work late. And then you're going to get involved with the secretary who makes you feel better than your miserable wife. And so, I know I'm sounding passionate right now, but it's a true, it's real life. Um, and so for me, desirability is obsolete without submission. Without a woman who understands what it means to be a woman or gentle, if she's a woman that doesn't understand those things, then she is needs to be a student. She needs help. She's somebody that I can minister to, but I could never be attracted to her to marry her. Um, and again, I've given the reasons, therefore, or why. And I'm saying these things, and I also believe that this should be the standard for all men. I'm not the only person that says this. There's a lot of men that are coming to this understanding because a lot of men have just settled for what they can get. And that's another thing. Actually wanted to ask you a question, Owetu, because you said something earlier about the idea of, and Dwayne said it as well, like getting to know somebody that wasn't necessarily your type, but you saw them, you bumped into them, you became acquainted. I want to ask a question and a challenging question as well. In that being physical attraction is very important to most men. Like, is there any man in here? There's only three of us. Is there anyone that thinks that physical attraction isn't that deep? Then if you don't think physical attraction is really that deep, you can feel free. It's not a trick question. You can feel free to throw your hands up because I have a question. Um, because there was a point in my walk in Christ when I thought, it's all about spiritual side. It's okay. I'll just grow to love her. But I realized that I, I I've said it before. Never settle for something that's not your best or your first. Now that doesn't mean going for a mainstream look or a certain look. It means not to go for a woman who you're not necessarily go out of your way to go for a woman who you're not attracted to because you believe you're going to eventually. Because what if you don't? Now, if you don't, it's very dangerous. Because if she's not your first choice, you're going to see your first choice when you're with her, and you're going to get twisted up because you're with this woman for life. So it's important there is some level of attraction necessary. Personality is so important because that is what keeps you after. First is the physical appearance, then the personality keeps you. A woman could be physically attractive, she could open her mouth and I won't be attracted to her anymore. So yes, the personality matters. But I'm gonna spin it to Oetu then, in that when we speak about the spiritual aspects of Christian relationships, we're okay, we're not shallow, we're not just like, oh my gosh, she has to have this and that. We're more open-minded. Let's say that we're more open-minded. But how important then in that being open-minded is it necessary, long-term wise, to be physically stimulated by the woman that you're with? Do you believe where you are now in your level of understanding, even, um, because it doesn't have to, because you can challenge it as well. Do you believe that you could um, work with a woman who doesn't stimulate you physically? Okay, and I don't know if I want to extend that question. Where to? Do you believe you can work with a woman who, in the long run, doesn't physically make you excited? And the reason I'm asking that is because generally, as men, there tends to be like an image that might pop up on social media that excites you. We see it and it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't see that. Oh my gosh, it's messed up my moment. So could you be with a woman who doesn't make you feel that way, and why? If you can, what why would you want to be with her?
To be honest, I wouldn't want that. And the reason being, I would like to look at my partner and not be boastful about her, but be proud to know to say this is my partner. You know, um, I wouldn't want someone that I'd have to hide. Every time the guys link up and we all with our wives, and I just tell her, "Oh, nah, please stay at home." That's that's not ideal. There's a there's a certain level of, I can say, achievement that we attach to a woman's beauty. I don't know, maybe it might just be me, but I do believe there's a certain level of achievement, you know, um, because it's like your woman becomes the face of your household in terms of like the beauty, you know. Um, and I know Yeah, I know. I also was just like, oh no, it's 100% personality and 0% looks. But then I came back to my senses. Um, in some cases, I will admit that there are certain women which are not like extremely attractive. You know that those women you can look at from across the room, and you are 100% sure that 90% of the guys in this room admire her beauty. So there's certain women who don't fit that criteria, but it's almost like their character makes up for that certain level which they can't reach. So maybe they're like 70% beautiful, but the 30% in their character just makes them look so attractive. So yeah, but to answer the question, yeah, I certainly could not be with someone I don't find attractive, because then what is there to love about that person? There's, I'm not saying uh, you can't like what you don't physically find attractive, but yeah, for me, it's more so a thing of I have to desire you. Like, at the end of the day, I have to desire you. And yes, beauty fades and everything, but there's a certain time when it's there, when the beauty is there before it fades. So, um, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
That's good. I want to spin it to Dwayne as well, and then I'll probably take some of the women's thoughts, and then hopefully we, if this conversation then moves on, we can go into Nicole's because I haven't forgot about that. It's just that we're here. And also, you said some good points over it too. You clarified something as well, because I'm also not trying to make this sound shallow. So my point is not that, oh my gosh, if she's not the beauty standard of the West, then she has no hope. That is definitely not what we're saying. And I think you made it clear because you said that there's some women that don't meet the criteria that Andrew Tate wants, but she meets your criteria. There's women that might not meet the criteria. What, in fact, the way that these men, red pill men, describe women is not even my type anyway, at all. So there are women who are going to be attracted to us individually, and that's what that matters. So it's not like a certain look. Your look, Owetu, might be different to mine. I don't know if you heard Owetu, Migzo, sorry's response in the group to an image I posted of a basically a what you call a fat girl and a skinny girl, or a voluptuous girl and a slim girl, and she had a lost weight. She had a dieting program where she really lost extreme weight, and I was basically challenging it in that why does everybody think that this is what every man wants? You know, this is a lie that thinks that every man wanted her to look like that, and I was just presenting the idea that even the girl on the left is attractive to many men, and so interestingly, Migzo's jumped in there now with the image that I've posted, and he said he was shocked. He said he never thought he would hear anyone say this, but for him, he said his preference was the girl on the left. The girl on the left was voluptuous. Some women or people might call her fat. She was voluptuous, and he said he was drawn more towards that side. Andrew Tate and the way they describe women would look more like the right side, just skinny with no, just skinny, just straight. The girl on the left had a voluptuous look, but also could be considered fat depending on who's telling the narrative. And so I just wanted to use that as an example where Mixo was saying that was why he went for his wife because of that look, because of the bigger look, because of the voluptuous look, because of the little bit of the belly as well that was there that she has, because bigger girls tend to have that. So it's a lie to think that every man needs a skinny belly, a flat belly. Personally, I'm not attracted to muscly bellies on a woman because for me, anything that looks anything close to me or masculine, I'm not interested in. So if it's too perfect, I'm not interested. Some guy might be. I still question some guys that are into muscly looking women, but you know, every man for their choice. However, we all have individual preferences, which means that even the look that excites us is not one plain look. And we thank God for that. We thank God. We thank God that the look that excites us is different. So I was just really honing down on the idea that even though our look might be unique, it still has to be somewhat stimulating, you know, because how sad would it be, even for the woman, for the husband to be with her as a second choice, somebody he just settled for, but when it comes down to intimacy, it's like, oh, I'm tired, my love, I'm tired. Because that's what it's going to come down to, and tired. Because that's what's going to happen is sadly, sad. But that's what's going to happen when men are not attracted to their wives. It's like, oh, babes, I'm tired. When a man's excited by his wife, he's not tired. Just saying. When he's not, he's tired. Yeah. So intimacy is like, yeah, can we do it another day? You see? But when a man's excited, he doesn't want to do it another day. When men are excited about women, fornicators, for example, they want to do it all the time. When he's bored, then he wants to save it for another day. So, and this is why I was saying it's actually honest as well as men to be with somebody who we find physically appealing. The one more aspect I want to add to this, because there was a particular time when I was coming up in the faith as a baby Christian, and in this spiritual time when you think, you know, maybe God's just gonna give me a woman to humble me, and maybe He's just gonna give me a woman that is not my what I want, but we're gonna grow in love. I had that mindset too, and it's like, so what happens is then my mind is like more open, and it's like, well, it could be this one, but it could be that one because she's friendly and this person's nice to me, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. But then it's also not, it's also, it can be very unrealistic. And now growing and going through those experiences, I realized that no, God doesn't expect you to just settle for someone because you're holy now and you're not supposed to have what you're attracted to, because you should. Just like every woman in this room is going to be attracted to, and it might not be so material or physical, but every woman in this room wants a man who's strong, provider, protector, a certain way about him. So likewise, it's not, we're not guilty as men for also wanting a woman that meets a certain package, not specific, not so specific, not ungodly specific, where it's like she has to have this and has to have that, but something within attraction within your realm so that you can have enthusiasm. It's not just going to be doing Bible study every day. It's not bedroom Bible study every day, you see. Intimacy is important. Otherwise, you won't have children. Just be buying Bibles every day and just be Bible study every day. And that's not really marriage, that's friendship. And I think it's sad that a lot of men end up just married as friends because it shouldn't have been a marriage, it should have been a friendship. Dwayne, let me pose this question and welcome Leante as well. So, Dwayne, do you have any other nuance on this topic in regards to what's been said, in regards to how important physical? Because you mentioned about bumping into someone and getting to know them and getting to like them. But then, with that being said, how important still is the physical aspect? Because what if that person you bump into was really nice? Let's give you an example. What if the person you bump into and become really close with is really nice, but physically is is far from what makes you attracted or what makes you desire? How would that affect you wanting to go forward with that person, or would you still want to go forward even not being attracted?
I would say obviously, you would have to have some sort of attraction there, or but you know, but at the same time, you wouldn't want the best looking girl, should I say? Because I just don't know. Everyone's gonna want that person in it, if that makes sense. So yeah, obviously the way how she speaks and the what comes out of her mouth is key in it. You know, um, but it's not always about the looks of what they look like. If you get me, like you shouldn't have to worry what she looks like as long as she looks good in your eyes. You should be able to just bring her anyway and be happy with what you got in it, sort of thing. But I do believe the way the person speaks is key in it. So it's not always about what they look like, because you could have a fat girl or whatever you desire, sort of thing. But it's just the way how she comes across to people. She could make people's day wonders, if you know what I mean. She goes in shops and everyone takes to her just because of the way she speaks. She might not look good, but no one ain't even looking at how she looks, if that makes sense. You know, so yeah, so I really, that's it really. But yeah, I would definitely need a woman with her head screwed on. The way she speaks is key to me. But yeah, that's it really.
You provided an interesting spin there, yeah, like a very good spin there, and I agree with basically everything you're saying. But I do want to ask, uh, so that we can clarify as well. 'Cause obviously, we're all learning, and I'm sure the women are quiet, but they're listening and learning as well. So, with what you just said, it could come across as though when you say the looks aren't as deep, or it's not all about the looks. So, obviously, we all have individual looks, so that's fine. We have a specific attraction to ourselves, and each of us has it differently if we're not brainwashed by the media. However, because of what you said, I want to ask you then, could you be with a girl who, as you said, makes that lights up the place, makes everyone happy, makes, everyone's drawn to her, she's kind, she's submissive, she's gentle, but her face is not attractive to you at all, as in whatever wasn't your type back in the day or now, whatever's like the opposite of your type, could you be with a girl that has all those qualities and characteristics and carries a lot of joy and healthy presence? Could you be with her even if her face is the type of face that you would never be attracted to? Would you still try to make that work, or would you still think that you can make that work? Because I just wanted to be clear on if that's what you're saying.
I believe it could, especially if you got a connection there. Yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily the looks. Like obviously, you know, with with you know, I got whatever the word is called, where I don't look confident, I'm not happy where I would wear a hat, but obviously she could have similar things, and I'm not going to penalize her because she may, have half of her head missing or whatever it is. I'll obviously still be there, I guess, because it's not about, it's about just like, that just how you lot get on in it, and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't mind looking how it might not be how you may not want it, or but you're happy in it, so that's the main thing. You go home, there is no arguments throughout the whole 20 years of your marriage. There is no arguments. I'm not saying but yeah, basically there's no arguments, and that's what I would say. But yeah.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a nice different spin on the conversation, and I think what Dwayne just said is a healthy approach in that prioritizing the character, which actually endures longer than the physical beauty, which can change, as Owetu said. Um, and I think what you said, Dwayne, is deep. I don't think a lot of men can carry that out. I'm just gonna say that because I think it's powerful if you can, but there's an issue where a lot of men will do that in the beginning, and then before they know it, the other attractive women are now more attractive than their wife, and then it gets crazy. So if a man can do that and endure, that's honorable. But then if a man does that only because he's settling, and then gets tempted by every other woman because they're more attractive than his woman physically, that's where there'll be an issue. And then that's where we have to sometimes, or in general, a lot of men have to lean towards something that is physically attractive so that there's a level of stimulation, so that it doesn't become, as I just mentioned before, just friendship, or just somebody you're not attracted to can just become your friend rather than a lover that you want to be intimate with in the bedroom, um, and all the rest of that stuff. Go on, Dwayne.
No, I was just gonna say, obviously, you could have the nice looking girl, what every man would want. I'm not saying then you got to worry about she cheating, but everyone that obviously wants that girl is gonna be talking or saying, "Oh, look how beautiful you are," behind your back, and she might not say nothing to you. She might be entertaining people what you're not aware of, and it's not just that, because obviously the girl that you may not was expecting to have could do the same thing. But obviously, once you are together and you got favorites different, that those sort of things shouldn't happen, innit? But yeah, the nice girl, what everyone would want, is probably the wrong one, if you get me. It's hard to explain, but yeah.
So let's go a little bit further. It's good. What you're saying is good because it's just a little bit further here, because are you talking about going for someone who, because when you say the nice girl that everyone wants, I definitely agree that that's usually a red flag. So if it's the girl that everyone wants, that's usually the red flag. It's like, no, it's not a good idea to be with the girl that everybody's hunting. Generally, it's not, because that's chaos and it's a mess. Um, but then we can still be attracted to the girl that nobody else is attracted to, but she's very sexually attractive to us as men. So I could see a girl who's extremely sexually attractive, but maybe you and Oetu might think, what, she ain't for me, or she's not attractive to me. So it's definitely individual. So I'm not saying that when we're talking about individual attraction, that's fine. But so are you talking about being with somebody who you find attractive that nobody else does, but you can see her beauty? Or again, are you saying that you can be
Yeah,
with someone who you physically
the
don't
the,
find
the,
attractive?
the first one.
So the one that you find her attractive personally, even if no one else cares.
Yeah, because you know, it's not about everything else. What other people's opinion is, in it. It's about how you feel inside, and yeah, like I said, like the way she comes across, because I know there is people out there that can light up the room and be that person. What no one else can be. But yeah, so it's about finding them, and if that, you know, if you get me.
Yeah, that's good. That makes more, well, that makes more sense in because you still have the initial attraction to her because it's your own individual preference, and maybe the attraction is built out of the way she behaves and her character. And I can definitely relate to that in what I said earlier, that now more submissive, gentle women are attractive. Leonte wasn't here, so I'll just recap. I was saying that before, I was not attracted to submissive, gentle, or nerdy woman. That was the complete opposite. Uh, um, I wasn't attracted to that before. Today, that's what I would go for. Today, I wouldn't even be caught dead in a marriage with a woman who's rebellious or masculine in any regard, because I would feel like a fool for doing that. And so the woman that I would go for today, I would compromise looks at the point where I had to choose between two, and one of them is a lady and gentle, and the other one is very beautiful but she's ratchet. I would definitely lessen on the looks and go to the one who's because I could never ever in a million years today, with the understanding that I have, marry a woman who thinks she can backchat me or is just aggressive, because women don't have to be that way. There's some people that just don't behave that way at all. So why should I have to put myself in that situation? Now some women grow and they change, other women are born in cultures that are more gentle, but there's so much options in the world that as a man, and Dwayne's making it very clear as well, even Dwayne's putting that above the looks. So that is a key element in relationship. From a man, we can go to the woman's side, by the way, and I would love to because it would be fair. So from the man's perspective, we've got physical, but we've also got character. Owetu didn't specifically mention submission, particularly. Dwayne mentioned character. I've mentioned submission is the top of my list. Like that can even make a woman attractive to me because of her obedience or submission. So that also can create a beautiful woman in my eyes. But then she becomes attractive to me again, like Dwayne said, even if she's not attracted to everyone else. That is so important, and I think healthy men would generally want that. Unhealthy men and toxic men don't care if you're submissive. I said this on Facebook the other day. Men that only think about sex don't care. Listen very carefully, women. Men that only think about sex and temporary satisfaction, they don't care if you're rude. They don't care if you're toxic. They don't care if you're not submissive. Why? Because they only want you for a little time until they move on. I'm telling you the truth. Men that don't care if you're submissive and if you have character, because they just need your body for a while. They just need your body until they use it up and then they can move on, okay? So that's just a little doctrine right there. Men that do not care and say, I don't mind if she's submissive, because they're not trying to be with you for long. They might want to be with you for a year or two. They're not sticking around. They ain't into marriage. They're here for fun. When I was into fun in the world, I didn't care if she's submissive or not. I just care if she has a nice body and she's down. When you care about marriage as a man who is a healthy man, you're gonna consider the extra details that make a marriage. Most men today don't care about marriage. They don't care if you're submissive or not, because they're not gonna live with you. They'll just leave when they're ready. I hope every woman understands that. Uh, so unless Oweti had anything to add before we pivot to the women, is there any woman that can express or demonstrate? The men have been quite raw and straight. You also have the right to be raw and straight too. You see, you can also say what you desire. Kaylee was raw when she said, "I only go for white guys." You could be raw and straight. You can say what it is specifically that you want. And is there anything, as a woman, that you would say is essential? Why? Because we're all learning as well, and as men, um, we can also understand what it is that women require. So, Owetu, if you have anything, I'll give you a few seconds. Otherwise, we can go to any woman that wants to say what maybe she wanted in the past, because no one's really shared that, and what you want today and why you want that today, and probably what you wouldn't tolerate. And if nothing's coming to mind, I'll help out here. Would you want a man who doesn't lead? Would you want a man who is a sweet boy? Would you want a man? You see, there's many things that might be a deal breaker for you, or emotionally unbalanced, or whatever the case may be. So, um, any woman want to touch in on there after where two goes, if you have anything to say? And Leonte, definitely get involved.
On my side, I have nothing to add. Just awaiting the responses of the rest of the saints.
My preference before was definitely similar to everything that Tia said. I used to strictly just go for mixed and black guys, and then white guys were like a no zone for me because I thought they were. This is not to be disrespectful, but this was due to personal experiences, like at school and stuff. I thought they were a bit strange, and there was a bit of a clash, mainly because of the stuff that they used to say to me. So I kind of had in my mind like white guys wouldn't be attracted to me. So I think I just like crossed them off the list and like thought they were a bit strange and stuff. So I strictly went for black, mixed, and type of bad boy kind of character, kind of guys. Like I think one guy went for, he even had a gun. Like yeah, it wasn't good. But now I would say that I could. What my preference would be now would definitely be a strong man. I think that's what I was looking for then, but in the wrong things. Definitely a strong man that can lead, take charge, is already established and knows who he is. So he already has to be established and knows who he is, and he definitely has to be stronger than me. And I'm talking about not just physically but emotionally, because the one thing that would put me off is a man that is emotionally weaker than me, and I could never go out. Also a coward and a man that's effeminate, and I think they kind of intertwine with each other, like an effeminate man being cowardly and is just emotionally weak. So there would probably be more triggers that would put me off, but those are the things that come to mind now. Like I couldn't go out with or marry a man that was just weak and a coward. I think coward would be on top of the list. Like he would throw you in front of a gun, a bullet coming his way, and he grabs his wife and puts her in front and runs off. That kind of like cowardly thing. Or like I see videos on social media where women are in fights and you see men standing around laughing and video recording. I really hate stuff like that. I hate not the man himself, it's just the act. It's more of like seeing them act like cowards or encouraging wrong behaviour in women and in society, or like men that would throw other men under the bus, just stuff like that I really dislike. So my thing would be I could never marry a coward, someone that's emotionally weaker than a woman and effeminate. They're just like put-offs to me. But what I would look for is like I said, a man that can lead, a man that is strong emotionally, a man that would tell you even if you was trapped in a house and the house was burning down, and he was that confident to still make you feel safe. That kind of guy that you can completely like put your trust in and be vulnerable with. That's the kind of man that I would go for. A provider, a protector, not just of his own house but of society as well. Someone that will provide and protect. I'm sure there's more, but that's what's coming to mind for now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what you said, Nicole. And even with there being the difference between being in Christ and not being in Christ, like I noticed before Christ, I would go for, not intentionally, but I found that I was with men that were emotionally unstable, and that caused me to be in a kind of dynamic where they depended on me, and I liked that for a period of time. But what I found happened was later on I ended up detesting it, because when I'm not, because as we know, as women, we can be emotionally unstable ourselves at times. And so whenever I would go through something, there's no one that was able to ground me, because they're emotionally unstable and I'm feeling type of ways, and it's just a big mess. Whereas like what I've come to realize, being in Christ, how important it is for the man to be emotionally stable, because just having that nature as a woman, it's just so important to be able to be guided in that way. And he's like the one that will be able to settle you and bring you back to reason, if I can say it like that. Whereas if a man's just emotionally unstable, then it's just like he's going to be here, there, and everywhere, and you're going to always feel like he's needing you and dependent on you. Whereas like now, I know for myself that I would rather someone that doesn't need me but wants me, because there's also like a big difference with that. So yeah, I definitely agree. And that's what I feel like that's what a lot of relationships are these days. A lot with the dynamic being the woman mothering the men, and they say there might be a sense of enjoyment in that for a period of time because you feel like you're needed, but then yeah, ultimately you're not going to want that, because that doesn't make you feel protected, it doesn't make you feel secure even. So yeah, I definitely agree.
How deep that is. Before we go to the next person, that's so deep. Both what Nicole and Tia said and the aspect that Tia added. First of all, like as men, we need to capitalize what's being said here: emotionally weak or unstable. There has been no explanation specifically what that looks like, but that's a key element here that both Nicole and Tia said I wouldn't be attracted to emotionally weak, emotionally unstable. But Tia added an aspect in that at first she enjoyed the element of a man depending on her, and that's so interesting to me because I've seen that's the culture I was raised in. I've seen, I always used to refer to it as the man sitting in the passenger seat of the woman's car and leaning on the woman and living in the woman's house, and when the woman gets vexed she just puts all his stuff in a bag and kicks him to the curb. But Tia said something key. At first she desired it and then she despised it. From desired to despised, because there was a moment where it's like you're feeling like mummy and the motherly nature kicks in. This is kind of an interpretation of it, but there's this level of I don't want no scrub. Scrub is a gotta. There's a level of depending on you, to be graphic, for breast milk. Like this man is depending on you and you're mothering him. And this is actually the condition of a lot of relationships today. The man is being mothered by the woman. The woman's telling you, go out and do something with you. She's literally your mum. And for a while, the woman will play that game. They'll play that game. They'll look after you. They buy you stuff. But then there's a point, as you said, Tia, that becomes despicable. Like to the point where it's like, ew. And I say that because I've heard women say that. And it's like you realize the person has become your child and you're no longer sexually attracted to them, which can destroy the entire you know, context of that relationship. So yeah, those are a few interesting things that have been said. Tia, Kaylee, or Leonte. Do you want to add in any confirmations or add anything else that may be deal breakers on both of your parts, or anything that us men can learn and pass down to other men that is important in relationships, apart from what's been said?
So for the pets, let me just, oh, sorry. So for when I was in the world, I used to go for obviously white men. And I used to actually go for pretty kind of boys at first, but then as I was getting older, like towards my late teens and stuff, it'll be like white boys, but they'll be like more hood. So they'll act like they were black, but they're white. So that's what I used to be attracted to. But that is totally the opposite to what I would not want. Because you find that they're very emotional as well. I find that people in those kind of like lifestyles and gangs are kind of like very emotional, very snappy, very, yeah, just don't have it all together and stuff. So I wouldn't want that. And what I would say is when I'm in Christ now, I would like a man that I'm not able to walk all over. I know that that might sound strange because if I know that if a man's weak, I'll probably be like, yeah, I probably won't take them seriously. So I think the man has to be strong, has to know what he wants as well, because I wouldn't want to be with somebody that will be like, oh, I don't know whether to do this, don't know whether to do that. It's kind of like that's a bit more like a woman's kind of like personality, not really knowing what they want or what God has called them to do. Like I'm not your God basically. So they need to be establishing God first and know exactly who they are, where they're going to, because at the end of the day, if you know who you are in Christ and you know that you need a certain kind of man that will kind of like, let's say, for example, in ministry wise, if a man is called, let's say, as like a preacher to a church, to one particular church, it might not be the same as, let's say, if God's called, let's say personally me, he says you're going to travel and stuff like that. I would know that would not work. So it would have to be somebody that would be compatible within ministry as well. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. Lante, did you want to add anything to the discussion being the last female that spoke?
No, I don't really have anything to add, to be fair.
Okay. Do you agree or disagree or
No, I agree with everything.
okay, that's good. I'd realized I said you're the last woman that hasn't spoken, but Sister Tanya also hasn't spoken, and we may be in a different generation, so maybe there's um maybe the context that we're speaking of it in is very different to you, but you can also feel free if you have any older wisdom or experience that you could add if you want to, Sister Tanya.
Basically, if I wasn't at least attracted to a man, it would never work. Because I have actually got engaged to a Christian in the past, but wasn't actually that attracted to him, and it never really grew. And obviously when he wanted to get married, I said no. Um, Apart from that, yeah, I went for the more probably aggressive man, but the problem was I ended up in a lot of fighting relationships, which is something I definitely wouldn't want. Yeah, that's the two things really. I'm quite happy and content. I used to think I want a partner, but the older I grow, I'm quite content with what I have. I can see my children when I want. Um, I've got quite a good thing. I see Nicole a couple of times a week. I see Raquel, my oldest daughter, a couple of times a week. And I see Kaylee every day. I get to see me grandchildren all the time. And quite honestly, I'm quite happy with that. So, yeah, especially we're not seeing my daughters a lot in the past. God has really turned it around. So, if I did meet somebody, I don't know if, because I definitely wouldn't put, sort of man over my children anymore. I have probably done that in the past, but I was probably too scared to get out of the relationship at the time. But I did get out of it, and I can remember my oldest daughter saying, "Don't have any more, boyfriends," than I did, and that was 15 years ago. So yeah, I'm quite content. The older I get, I'm happy seeing me grandchildren and being part of their lives. So yeah, that's all I've got to say really.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something else to say? Your hand is up.
All right, no, that's an accident. I pressed the wrong one.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's that's good. It's kind of confirmation to everything that's been said. And I just want to clarify as well, this conversation by no means is kind of encouraging or pushing people into thinking that you need to be in a relationship in any regards, because I'm sure there may be some people in here called to singleness. It's more of a discussion of learning and passing knowledge down, sharing knowledge to, it's kind of also defining the difference between males and females, which obviously the society had been struggling with for a long time. Now they're kind of coming back to the senses. But I think it's also good to hear like every woman is similarly saying, they're all saying different things, but they're all similar at the same time. I want to ask Owetu after this what your takeaways is from what's been said collectively or in summary. And there was something else I wanted to ask Sister Tanya, and it was just a simple question. And when you say you couldn't be with someone who you're not attracted to, it makes sense. But I just wanted to clarify, is that purely physical attraction because of his facial features and physical appearance, or is that attraction because of the way they behave and carry themselves?
Probably a bit of both. I think you've got to, be attracted to them, obviously, to have intimacy. But personality can put you off as well. Yeah. Because, I mean, I did go out with a Christian, but he wasn't really, he obviously believed in marriage. He was going to get married, but I couldn't marry him because I didn't really love him that way. You know how one of the men said, you grow to love them, but you don't. If you don't want to be with them that way, then you won't. That's what ended it in the end. I just didn't want to be with him. I didn't want to marry him. So,
It's interesting because I said that a bit earlier that it's difficult if we go into a situation, especially from the man's perspective, saying, "Okay, cool, I'm spiritual and I'll grow to love the person," because you may not, well, you'll love them, but they might be your friend, and you might not want to sleep with them. And sleeping is very important in a relationship because it's what keeps you in the intimacy of marriage. Other than that, it's just friendship, and there was no need to be tied to a covenant of friendship because it's friendship. So, Oetu, did you have, according to what you've heard, Oetu and Dwayne, according to what you've heard from the women, do you have any response or do you have any takeaways in terms of? And by the way, the whole Nicole, if it's okay, wondering if we should go on to the power of the tongue next week, looking at the time. And I know it's because that's actually an excellent topic, and I don't want to rush it as well. So I didn't
No, that's
realize.
that's completely fine, honestly. I think the topic went as God wanted it to, and I've enjoyed it, so we can wait till next week.
Thank you, that's good. Yeah, there was. I wanted to say this quickly as well before I were to, because I did kind of have an inspiration from the Lord that in these studies, because it has been a bit spontaneous for a while, because I haven't found time or I haven't invested the time enough to put into carrying out the study in a certain format. But I did get an inspiration today to incorporate scripture, and not just scriptures, but stories that we can look over. And so that's something to look forward to future wise, looking at a story of what's happened between certain people. For example, when David's son raped his sister, and looking at that and then breaking down why that happened and what we can learn from that, because ultimately everything we're talking about has to be biblically based, and it is. But sometimes when we're not referring to scripture, people might think it's just our views, but really everything we're saying is tied to scripture. So I would just like to incorporate the scriptures more into the topics, but I guess that's going to take a little bit more preparation with regards to that. Kaylee, do you want to go before I do?
Yeah, I was thinking of a perfect example of Jacob with Leah and Rachel. So I was thinking how Leah was not his first choice. So what happened is Leah ended up being hated, whereas Rachel was his first choice. So he loved Rachel and he was with her. So that was the thoughts that I did have for this conversation. And so I just thought I'll bring it up now, kind of thing.
Thank you very much for that. And you see, so that just gives the solidity to what's being said, in that if you go for the person who it wasn't your first choice, as we've just seen there in the scripture, and I don't think now we're going to have time to really dissect into that. I don't think we would see, but I want to get over to see if you have anything first. Um, but there we have it. Jacob settled for somebody he didn't want as his first choice and ended up hating her, not even wanting to sleep with her. So, just to clarify, these things that are being said are not just human wisdom, but it's actually what we learned from the Lord. If you go for somebody, and it's something that I've only started to say recently, probably this year, but you shouldn't go for your second choice. You should go for your first choice. Don't go, and your first choice can be the person that nobody likes. The first choice doesn't mean the mainstream. It means what's first to you, what you're attracted to. But if you go for your second choice, you're always going to think, oh, why did I settle? I could have been with that, or why, never. When you do that, you damage yourself in your future relationship. Kaylee, and then Oetu, if you could go after Kaylee in Just if you have any takeaways from everything that's been said. Katie.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just a thought, and then I kind of just, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Thank you. Sorry.
So, brother Oetu, do you have any takeaways? Is there anything that you, from what the women have said, or how you can incorporate it, or what you learned from it, or just in general, any confirmations?
So for me, from what I've got, um, is that firstly, be bold, right? Like Nicole said, like if there was a shooting and then I drag my wife in front of me and put her in front of me to save myself from the hailing bullets, that's not very manly, right? Then secondly, be firm. Just like KD said, how like she knows like maybe she can. I don't know if I understood her correctly, but maybe she can like, depending on how soft the guy is, she can push certain boundaries. And if she sees that you're weak, then um, it's just a major turn off, if you could say. Um, and then what I also got is that culture is quite influential in when it comes to attraction, right? And your environment slash surroundings are also have a part to play in terms of the attractive scale for a woman. So yeah, I believe such things are somewhat refined when you're in Christ because you are one culture with Christ now. It's no longer a Zulu thing or a Xhosa thing or a Jamaican thing. It's a Christ thing. So whoever you meet when you're in your Christ culture will be attracted to you based on that Christ culture and no longer your Jamaican, your Zulu, your Xhosa, your Eritrean culture, and. So it's important. For me, what I'm seeing is that it's important to put on the Christ culture before any of our homegrown culture, so that we attract the right people. Um, and what else did I learn today? What else did I learn today? Oh, from Miss Tanya, what I learned is that no matter how hard you try, if you are forced into a relationship, it most likely won't work out. You most likely won't learn to love that person because you were forced to be there rather than it being a decision, made from both parties, So as choosing a partner is very important because it's like you're gonna have to do that for life. So yeah, that's what I've gotten from what has been said.
Just before you go, Nicole, there's this interesting. There is such an interest. There's a thought in my mind, and again, I don't know if we're gonna have the time to answer it as women, if the women are gonna be able to answer it. What it is I'm trying to reconcile something. Men are visually driven. Women are driven by what they hear and imagine. Women fall in love with ideas in their mind of men, and often they get disappointed when they meet the real man because the fantasy was greater than the experience of the real man. But men were very bluntly put, physically, visually driven. You see something, you like it, wow, amazing, nice, makes you want to move, makes you want to prowl, makes you want to make her your prey, and that's how men operate. But there's this distinction because Sister Tanya has mentioned about physical attraction and saying it's also important. Now, I'm aware, yes, that women have to be somewhat attracted. Okay, cool. Like, You're not going to go for somebody who's the complete opposite of what you like. But then there's also another element where you see a lot of attractive women in the world with men who are physically different looking. And mostly in other countries, I've mentioned Brazil, I've given examples and even pictures of Ethiopia, Brazil, where you get this model like woman and then the guy is like short and fat with a bald head. And it's not about money, it's just that he's a man, he's masculine and she's attractive. So as with what you're saying, Nicole, this is not to deflect what you was gonna say, but is if anyone can answer and if no one can today, that's fine too. What is the element necessary where Biggie Smalls and Faith Evans, for example, look, I mentioned, I don't know if it's with Facebook or in the group, but I said, look at every rapper today and look how different they look. Some look very strange, but yet they're all fantasized by women. How is it that a woman can be attracted to Wiz Khalifa and then Idris Elba and then T.I. and then Chris Brown and then Biggie Smalls? They're all opposites to each other. Like at least if it's men, we're like, okay, cool, we're going for this look. But there's no look. Why are they attracted to these men? Because they're brave, because they're famous, because they're powerful, because they have status. So I realize I've learned women go for status more than looks. So where's the line there then? Where's that line where it's like this guy could be quote unquote ugly, let's say ugly, but he's such a masculine man who's dominant and respected. Does that not work in the West? Is this just other countries, or is there, because I feel like Western women seem to be a bit more physically appearance driven, but in other countries, women literally go for a different experience where he needs to be a man. And my Ethiopian girl always reinforces that. She's like, we don't want pretty boys, we want men. We don't want like guys just because of how they look. We want men. Yes, you'd be attracted to them, but it's more about him being a man as opposed to anything else. So Nicole, you could go with what you're gonna say, and then you can touch on the answer to that if you want.
I don't mind just answering your question because I feel like what I say will bring it off topic because it's more in response to something that Oweti said and it put a thought in my mind. But yeah, I do think women would like to be with someone that they're physically attracted to, but I don't think that's the be all with women. I don't like a guy's driven by what he sees. Women by nature are not driven that way. So if a guy can play into that fantasy, maybe Jay-Z plays into the fantasy for Beyonce, that he makes a lot of money, he's a rapper, whatever his status and stuff like that, and maybe he just plays into that fantasy for her. So even though he not got the look, if we're going to be honest, he's not going to got the look that like Usher or Chris. I don't know what these women go for in terms of looks, but he definitely played into that fantasy for her. So I think these men that have a particular look that may not have the best look, but women are still attracted to. I feel like in a way they play into some kind of fantasy for the woman, whether that's the strong man behaving like a man, even if he's got like a dad bod or whatever it is. She's still going to go for him regardless of the way that he looks because he plays into that strong man, or whatever other kind of characteristic that the woman's looking for. If he has that, regardless of the way she looks, a woman is still going to go for him. And I think you've gave some good examples. And I know a lot of people do like to use Jay-Z and Beyonce as an example because that's a very obvious one, and Biggie Smalls and the wife that he had. So yeah, I guess having a good-looking guy would be the bonus on top, but I don't think it's as a drive for women as what it is for men. I feel like for men it's almost like a necessity, and I don't think it is for women. It's all about him being the strong man, him being the tough man, him being the protector. So I definitely feel like even if she's not attracted to the way he looks at first, she could end up being attracted to him if she realizes that's somebody to be desired. So if her eyes are open to this guy that almost looked like a nerd, but he's playing into the fantasy somehow, and all the other women desire him. Oh well, I'm going to desire him now because he's obviously desirable. So I think women are definitely more open to that in that way, as long as he's something to be desired.
When Eve realized that the tree was a tree to be desired, she took from the tree and ate. Tia.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think the reason we don't see that as often in the West is because, for the most part, men that aren't attractive are very insecure and they have no confidence. And so, because that is what would carry them in like a woman's eyes, because we see past that, because they're not walking in that, it makes them probably even more unattractive. Um, and I think that's what it is in the West, is the fact that because they're so insecure and they think that no woman would want them, it makes them even more unattractive. Whereas, like, this is why I wouldn't say, oh, a woman's going to be attracted to like just any unattractive man. But what it is that carries them is the fact that if they're confident, if they're sure of themselves, if they know their own value and all of that stuff, then yeah, a woman's like Nicole was saying, a woman's eyes are going to be open to the fact that okay, there's aspects of him that are desirable, um, and it makes him an option at that point. Whereas for the most part, men that are deemed unattractive today, they don't realize that, and so they just assume that, oh, no one's gonna want me, da da da. But yeah, I think that's why, like, in these foreign countries, because I don't know if it's because of like just how easy it would probably be to get a woman. It's like they're not insecure, and so because they don't have that, or even if they don't even care about how they look, it's like um it's easier for them to just get a woman, and it's easier for a woman to be attracted to them. But yeah, I would definitely say, even with myself, for myself, it's like before, like not in Christ, it's like, oh yeah, it's all about the physical. I need to be attracted to them physically. It's so important. But then you realize, and it's a gift in a way that a woman has to be able to appreciate a man's qualities outside of his looks. And I find that quite yeah, it's beneficial in a lot of ways, because a lot of women would get with men that they is everything physically that they want. Character and their personality is just so the opposite of what they need, and that's what like messes a lot of women up, because they go with what is gonna be, I don't know, socially desirable and acceptable, but they're just miserable. So yeah, there's definitely a lot quite different compared to a man, where it would be more looks that might be more of a foundational basis than um, other aspects. But yeah.
Just before Kaylee, you banged the nail on the head. You banged it. You banged the nail on the head because you said something, and I never thought of it in that particular way. But yes, men in other countries who don't meet the criteria of physical attraction in any regard. Mike has actually said this before. Mike Pinker has said what you just said, that those men are confident. Even those ones in the missing teeth and all the rest of it and whatever funny looking, but he's confident. He carries himself like a man, and she says they get women, or women desire them. And so it is that. It's the element of, you said something interesting. You said in the West, men that are not meeting the certain criteria of looks become very insecure. And that is sadly how a lot of us were raised. A lot of us were raised in a way over here where it's like, if you don't have a certain look, you have no hope. And so therefore you become incel, like they become incels. And then they become strange. And then the reason they're not getting women is not because of how they look, it's because they become incels, it's because they become strange, it's because they become weird. It's not actually the physical look, it's the mantle that you're carrying with the look. It's the presentation you're giving with the look. So therefore, there becomes the stereotype that an unattractive man is insecure in the West, but in Israel, it's not that. In Brazil, it's not that. In Ethiopia, it's not that. In Somalia, it's not that. In most other countries in the world, it's not that. So this is a lie that we have to break, and you just broke it by saying it. So amen, men, break that lie, that the physical attraction. I learned this when I came to Christ. I was very insecure when I was in the world because everything was physically emphasized. So I was very critical of myself, how I look physically. I came to Christ, and somewhere along the line of this accident, I realized the weight that I carried. I realized the power that God's given me on the inside, and it completely outweighed my physical look that I would view myself with. And then there was a point when I was just like, I'm beautiful. Like I can't remember how many years ago that was, but there's a point when I'm just like, I'm desirable, but not in a weird way, just because it was an acknowledgement some years back, and obviously since then I don't even have to say that because my presence is not in my looks anymore. My if it was, I should be getting a haircut every single week and making sure that my hair's looking fine and all the rest of that, well, like I used to do every week because I was all up in that. But at this point, I'm so far stretched from that place where today, when I present myself to anyone, I'm presenting myself as a man, as Chuka, as someone who's been trained by the Lord, someone who has wisdom. So that's what I'm presenting, not my physical shape, facial features. I'm presenting what I have to offer, and that comes naturally. And that's what we should do as men. We present the substance that we have. Because one thing I can say, and I've seen, is that a man who's physically attractive and has the look but is dumb and doesn't have any weight or hasn't wisdom or anything, yeah, he also becomes despicable to the woman. Just like Leah became despicable to Jacob. Confirm to me, women, that can the women confirm also that if a man is very physically stimulating and amazing, and then he's emotionally weak and imbalanced and cowardly, isn't that going to turn you off? Put a thumbs up if that'll turn you off. And then we go to it. See it right there. So there we have it. It's not even that. It's about how you carry yourself more than that. And that's what I've said before. Sometimes delusional men get it better because it's actually better to be delusional than insecure. Delusion. If we have two extremes, delusional is better than insecure. Delusional actually believes he can get whoever he wants, even if it's not true, but he'll end up getting it. The insecure don't believe they can get anything. Brother, or where to?
Yeah, I wanted to say, you know those guys, yeah, the ones who don't have like teeth or they have like a tooth missing and stuff. I find it um quite crazy how like those guys can be the most confident, right? And I want to ask, how much and like they're the funniest people I know, you know. I can't think of anyone at the top of my head, but I just know those guys are funny. Like in a group setting, they'd be the type to make a joke and make everyone laugh, you know. And I want to know like how much does humor play a part in the attractiveness of a man? Yeah, how much does humor play in a part? How much that? Yeah, you get my question. I just can't phrase it, but how much? How does humor? You get my question. Please answer, Katie. Thank you.
Um, it's funny because I was just gonna say, with Tia what she was saying and kind of Chuka how it's like bold and confident man. So it doesn't always have to be that they have to look like they have a six pack and everything to be attractive or to like pull women. And then I was gonna give an example, which was like I remember years ago when I was like in the world and there'll be people that I could look at and think, oh, they're really good looking. And then what will happen is I would end up going for somebody that would be not as attractive, but because they had confidence and boldness and even being funny, would make me laugh, that would actually attract me even more. So they might not be the best looking person in the world, but it's their funny, their confidence, and they're just bold kind of thing.
I don't know if you want to clap back on that or too as well. That's good. And I also want to just add an element to funniness because I also looked into this revelation wise, and there's an ability that a man has when he's funny to relax a woman, and most women are looking to be relaxed by a man. If a woman can't be relaxed with you, she'll never get into that place of really being able to let herself go, which is the place she needs to be in to really experience the height of intimacy. If she can't let herself go, then it's just going to be an awkward relationship. Something about the funny guy, first of all, it displays confidence because he's being funny, so he's being out there and assertive. But secondly, he has an ability to relax a woman's mind because if she's stressed and he's making her laugh, she's not stressed anymore because he's taking her stress away. And that's key to women to experience, especially sexually. That's key to a woman to experience that into good intimacy because he's taken her burdens by relaxing her through his mechanism of just making a joke out of that or whatever the case may be. Do you want to say anything to that or to?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I see it now, you know. Well, I've always seen it, but I just never thought like it could play like a huge, huge role. You know what I'm saying? Because I look at a person uh Who can we take? Trevor Noah, for example. Like he's a comedian, right? But then also he's involved in these like deep talks and everything. And I've heard like a number of women who are attracted to him because he has that balance, you know. Like when it's time to be serious, he can be serious. When it's time to make jokes, he makes jokes. So I think like a well balanced it's such a pity that he doesn't have Christ. Because then I think he would like tick all the boxes for most women. But yeah, and just the essence of being uh an attractive male. Like I think Trevor Noah would take it. But I also one thing I've realized, I don't think he's as bold as he seems because some of the opinions that he has, it's like mainstream opinions, you know. So it kind of feels like he's being bought by the West. And so he just says what sounds right in everybody's ears and so forth. So I believe he does like that boldness in him. But yeah, Nicole.
I was actually gonna say what kind of similar to what Aweti said to do with the man being funny and just bring a balance to it, because if he's being funny like silly, like he's constantly being silly, then it may be funny at first, but that could cause her to just not take him seriously if he's just being silly. I was gonna actually use Kevin Hart as an example as well, because for me, I wouldn't be attracted to him because I think he's made himself in some things that he's done look a bit too silly, and then you start to not take them seriously. So I think with the woman, she does need the balance, as Aweti says, between being funny in a what's that, charisma kind of way, I guess, and just being funny as in you're just being silly. And I don't think she would find that attractive if he's just like being silly or constantly making fun out of his own height because he's extra small or something like that, and just making himself look silly as a man. Like I think Peppa Pig would be a good example. Like they always made the dad look silly, and it was always like laughing at the dad, not laughing with him, but at him. This children's cartoon program. So I'll definitely say the balance is important between making her laugh and she's not making her laugh at you, but actually making her laugh, and not to the point where you're just like being silly where she can't take you seriously, but in a way of like you know when to be serious and you know when to have a joke, basically.
And you said about Trevor Noah, and definitely because he's definitely on. As far as I've seen, he's liberal or left with his views, and so that is quite sad. That was quite disappointing. But then, to be fair, I wasn't really surprised. But also, I was gonna say because when you said about he's not as bold as he seems, that some men are not actually brave, but as long as you can present yourself as brave, it's enough for the woman because they don't actually need to know. Every man is going to have fears. This is also another reality. It's your ability to cover those fears and make a woman look safe, feel safe. It's your ability to cover your fears and make a woman feel safe. So every man's going to experience fears. Apostle Paul says he comes to the church in fear and trembling. But we don't look at him as weak. Every man's going to experience fears. So it's not like we're trying to promote this, what they would call toxic idea of every man is just fearless and unafraid. No, it's not that we're not. It's not that we're unafraid of the lion. It's just that we have to protect the family. It's not that we're unafraid of the burglar. It's just that you have to protect the wife. It's not that you're unafraid of the consequences. It's the risk of reward over the fear of failure, as we spoke about. Yes, the risk of reward is greater than the fear of failure in men. So we're going to take the risk for the reward rather than being afraid to make any move because of failure. So, and I was going to say, in regards to comedians, a lot of them use that to cover their insecurities, and that's actually I think that's for Kevin Hart. That's for most of them. Those men that make jokes all the time, they're usually covering shyness or lack of confidence, but they cover it well, and no one will ever see it. Discerning people might see it, but generally it's gonna work, and everyone's gonna be, "You're so amazing, you're so charismatic," but they're often covering their tracks with those elements of displaying their skills. No different to a footballer, no different to any, athlete. They cover their insecurities with their ability to do something powerful or to play a musical instrument or to, with Mike Tyson, knock people out. He's very insecure. Mike Tyson's greatly insecure, but he presented himself as the strong man for so many years that women desired. But he's very insecure, but he knows how to present himself masculine or strong. So it comes down to the presentation. Comes down to the presentation. So I guess we're on time, and I'll just give a few minutes for last words and thoughts. And everyone, participate, share anything that you have over the next few minutes, summarizing anything you've learned, any takeaways, differences between male and female, whatever you could pass on. Now's your opportunity.
One big thing, it's something that I already know, but it's a confirmation, is that by judging by what the men said and by what the women say, is that men are definitely visually driven and women are definitely more driven by like what they not what they see, by what they hear. um I'm just trying to think how I can say it in a way of like the way that she's driven by a man, more of like personality, I should say, as the man's more driven by the way that the woman looks.
Kaylee.
I was just thinking about Adam in the garden where God brought Eve to him and he was like, this is I think it was flesh of my flesh and my bone of my bone or something like that. And I was thinking that was what he saw when he saw the woman physically. That's what he was obviously was drawn to, which was the way that she looked.
Scripturally speaking, one thing that we see from the beginning all the way through the scriptures, notice it, they say that you have to learn about a particular subject, look at when it first happened. Adam and Eve was the first marriage, and look how it took place. Eve was presented to Adam. Adam was the one who decided, according to her visibility, her beauty, that yes, I accept. And but Eve didn't. Eve was just there to be accepted or not accepted. And that spoke to me, that shows the emphasis is more on the men to be physically attracted to what he's or who he's choosing, as opposed to the woman, because Eve didn't really have an option. She was like, God formed her and said, here you go. Like, you're going to like him. He's a man. But for the man, he had to kind of agree and say, wow, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That's poetry. He was spitting bars. He was being poetic. That was his responses, like verbal communication. When a man likes a woman, he says stuff, and that's what Adam did. He was physically attracted. He started he started reciting poetry to her. But Eve was there. She was a presentation, and we see that throughout the scriptures. In it's the man that goes and picks the woman he wants. He goes and chooses, he sees, he picks, he hunts. He's a hunter, as they say. And the woman is actually the damsel ready to be taken, ready to be chosen. And that's the order that it's always been. So I do think, and one of the last thoughts I'll say is that the Western narrative where women have been overly emphasized on physical appearance, I think that's a lie. And I think that's why most women in the West, first of all, are all single and divorced and depressed. Um, because they thought that they're supposed to be going for guys that look a certain way, and then where are they now? Because everybody's single in the West. Like, there's not even, marriage is obsolete and archaic over here. Like, when you compare it to every other country in the world, what have we done wrong? That's what we've done wrong. The women have idolized this fantasy idea that a man has to look like this. When I was in my old church, girls, and they used to ask this when I was baby Christian, and the older, mature Christian women, they would say, "What's your type?" And they'll be like, "Thick neck and thick this and thick that." And it's like, there's this, women think they've been made to believe. Remember, the woman is deceived and not the man. Women have been deceived into thinking they need this physical thing. Yes, it's a gift or a bonus if the man is like, "Wow, you're really handsome." But I think it's important for women to understand that's not actually what's going to sustain you in the long run. Yeah, good looks is not going to pay your bills. Sweet boy is not going to pay your bills. But what is going to look after you and make you comforted and feel grow into love is the man who's actually a man, as you mentioned today. So don't buy into the lie that I'm sure women could pass up good opportunities because no, he doesn't have the right shoes on, or he doesn't have a thick neck, or he's got a 5 pack, not a 6 pack, and you'll pass away somebody who could have really looked after you because you're going for some dusty guy who looks the part and is a pagan. He looks the part and he's a coward that will push you in front of a bullet. See what I'm saying? So anyway, as we know, the women of God, their foundation is going to be men that are in the word, rooted in the word. Because something tells me that the women in here wouldn't be attracted to men that don't know nothing about God. Just like a woman in the world is like, I don't want a man that can't put a gun together. And that's what women are saying in the world. I don't want a man unless he knows how to use a gun. Well, Christians like, I don't want a man unless he knows how to use the Bible. See, so it's all about the standard and the moral standard that you set. So we're in the Christian community. So as Christian men, we know who we need to appeal to anyway. And by the way that we live our lifestyle should create that desirable effect and all the rest of it because of God raises you as men. God's gonna raise you into a desirable man. All you have to do is follow him. That's all you have to do. I didn't do anything. I followed him, and I've seen how he's made me desirable, not going by what people think of me, but because I can see it in myself. And so that's because he trained me to stop being an emotionally imbalanced little boy, sweet boy that cares more about how I look and licking my lips than anything else. I was looking at my music videos today in the past. I used to do that very thing that I don't like, when you're licking your lips when you're talking. And now I find it cringe, but I see a lot of ministers still doing that stuff. And I always know when people do that, they're being sweet. They're trying to sweet people that are watching them. Couldn't care less today, even though I don't particularly have dry lips, but I couldn't care less. Like that's not my substance. So our substance as men should be deeper and greater than looking pretty. Maybe that wasn't everyone's struggle, but that was definitely mine. Thinking I had to be a pretty boy, and that's not that doesn't get respect. What gets respect is being substantial. So yeah, any last words before we close? Uh, Dwayne, Leonte, two. Is everyone good then? Okay, so take it. We can close. That was a good discussion. Good spontaneous discussion. We're still looking forward to the power of life and death in the tongue. That will happen in God's time, but that's going to be a powerful talk. Power of life and death in the tongue is a Bible study we're looking forward to. How we bless ourselves and curse ourselves by what we say, and how we have to use our words very effectively. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity today to gather amongst your saints.